Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse Daily Dose of AFA. Sherry, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this logo on my face?
You know what? I don't know, but I don't know how to make it go away. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. All right.
Oh, look at that. Playing around with StreamYard. Isn't that awesome?
But you know what? That's what makes us.
Absolutely fucking amazing. Yes.
Exactly.
Because we're willing to try new things. We're
That's
willing
it.
to shake it up and start fresh and do different things.
Oh, yeah,
Welcome,
how fun.
everybody.
Welcome,
Morning, Eric.
welcome. How fun was it that when we came up and it was just a big giant thing over our faces and,
Oh my God. Yeah, I know.
and then I'm like,
Sorry.
wrong button. I hit
Wrong button.
wrong
Well,
button.
you know what? We made it. It's
We
another
did.
day.
We made it
September
another day.
1st, 2021.
Happy
Woo!
September, everybody.
Labor Day weekend, baby. This is the official end of summer. Everybody's back to school and
Yep.
back in the flow, hopefully. Good
Back in
morning, Beth.
Good morning.
Yeah,
And people always say Labor Day weekend is the last weekend for white pants. And I'm
that's
like,
what they say.
you know
But
what I
yes,
say? I'm like, nah, I'm a nurse. I can wear
yeah.
white pants
You
whenever I
you
want.
can wear white anytime you want. Yes, you
Yes,
can.
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Well, guess what, Sherry? The rules don't apply to us anyway. The rules don't really apply to anybody. That's
Right.
what that's what the message in the book is.
There you
You're
go.
absolutely amazing, exactly as you are. And guess what? The only rules that apply are the ones that you say apply.
There you go. The ones that you create.
The
Right.
ones that you create, the ones that
Yeah.
you agree.
Mm,
Yeah.
yep. So yeah,
Yeah.
so welcome September 1st. The
Hmm.
Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse Daily Dose of AFA. And
Yeah,
what
baby.
do we do every day here? We're here to bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're
Yeah.
here to bring you that high vibe. Start your day off, shift
Yeah.
perspective. Let me tell you, I woke up nauseous today. I was like, "Holy fuck! It's either a bong rip or this new honey that I got." Right? So
Yeah.
you wake up and you don't. Sometimes you wake up. A lot of times, people that have
Hmm.
certain illnesses. I look at it as this way. I have an endocannabinoid deficiency when I wake up every morning. So
Well, there you
I need
go.
to right? So support and
Yeah.
nourish it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Nurse Mark, it's hope and inspiration for growth and healing,
That's what
utilizing
we do.
cannabinoids
Hmm.
and other endocannabinoid system progressive
Right.
enhancing
Yeah.
tools and
Yeah.
therapies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the things that go into a healthy lifestyle, Sherry.
Yeah.
And those do
Absolutely.
include cannabinoids.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it also
Uh-huh.
includes
Yeah.
the daily love, because the daily
Oh,
love is a reminder that we
yeah.
need to take care of ourselves first. That whole
We
corny,
do.
cheesy, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. I'm sorry, but it's true.
It is
You know,
true. If
it's
you're not
true.
healthy, you can't help anybody else.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And today's
yeah,
message, today's daily love is all about sharing your gifts, sharing what you
there you
have.
go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sharing your gifts. I'm
You want to
ready to hear
let's rip right
your
into it. Okay. All right.
yeah.
So this is called prosperity. Comes from the Daily Word, which is just one of my favorites. Every day I read this along with a bunch of other stuff. So this is called prosperity. Ready?
I'm ready.
I enrich my prosperous life by sharing my good. Prosperity is not for me alone. From my treasure to my possessions to my life experience, all the things I have done and learned deepen in value when I seek to bless others.
Hmm.
Bounty increases through sharing. No matter its worldly value, any gift is an act of faith reflecting my belief in the circulation of God's goodness. I express faith through generosity and a consciousness of prosperity. My time and
Hmm.
attention are among the greatest gifts I have to share. I cultivate the richness of life by practicing gratitude, giving, and receiving. With a willing
Hmm.
and grateful heart, I am a joyful participant in circulating abundance.
There you go. Wow. That's really,
Joyful
really good.
participant. Yes.
And it's interesting too. There's a lot of little buzzwords that kind of stuck up for me,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sharing your gifts, right? So I look
Mhm.
at sharing your gifts as, you know, different things that you've done, right?
Mhm.
That you've overcome.
Yeah.
That's a gift. If you can step out of the picture in the story
Right.
and share what happened, like you did in your book,
Mhm.
right? You
Mhm.
share your compelling story. You came to a place where you loved yourself enough to
Yep.
be open and vulnerable with the world, to share
Exactly.
your gifts, because it's that whole outside world coming in and you're like, no, 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 I'm going to come back in and I'm going to process from a place of love, right?
Mhm.
That's why it's the daily
Mhm.
love, that's why it's AFA,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you share your gifts, you share your
Mhm.
heart, you share your soul. And
It's
that's and
sharing.
yes, and that brings prosperity because it makes people feel okay to share what's going on with them. What
Yeah.
I love, Mark, is that you've taught me to not get stuck in the story. So, we share our experiences, but we
Mhm.
don't let the story run rampant in our heads.
Right.
We pull
Right.
back out of it. And you get
Sometimes not so easy to do, other times a little bit easier to do, but in the end, like anything else, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And
yeah.
then you have that opportunity to just what? Choose a different story.
Choose a different story. So giving and
Yeah,
receiving, I had to choose a different story about giving and receiving because,
yeah.
what do we as parents, as nurses, as
Mhm.
women, we tend to give, and often put
Right.
ourselves on the back burner. So when
Mhm.
I got sick, okay, this was really hard for me to receive care because I was
Mm.
so used to giving to others that I actually kind of forgot to give a little bit to myself. So the
Yeah.
tipping scale got off, right?
Mhm.
So, and then I was placed into a space where I needed to be open to receive, to heal.
Mhm. Mhm.
So giving and receiving is really interesting. And then
Yeah.
when I was able to receive and fill my tank up,
Mhm.
guess what? It's easier to give, right?
It
So
is.
it's like that. It feeds each other. It's the
Yeah.
ecosystem of giving and receiving and
Yeah.
self love to love others. And then I love this too, Nurse Mark. Bless others for their gifts. An abundance
Yeah.
mindset. So it's that whole perception, it's that whole
Yeah.
mindset of if you can think it, you can
Yeah.
do it, right? And so you give
There's always
gratitude.
enough. There's
Yeah,
always enough.
yes.
The end
And
of the day.
yeah, always enough. And giving gratitude for what someone else is able to do
Mhm.
actually comes back to you, because if you can see it, also you can see it multidimensional. You can see what's going on. You can see the abundance
Right.
that's happening, and giving
Right.
gratitude. So love and gratitude. So gratitude
Mhm.
is the key that unlocks the door to everything that's good in our lives. So
Yeah.
blessing others, you're blessing yourself, right? You're
Yes.
blessing yourself. Love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
cannabis helps me to
Sharing.
connect the dots to all that woo woo, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
right? It
Yep.
does. I love when we talk about this type of stuff because you don't hear it enough,
Mhm.
and we don't hear spiritual principles coming out of clinicians' mouths, registered nurses, medical doctors, nurse practitioners, because generally,
Mhm.
usually when we are in a space, I'm not gonna call it too traditional, but the system that we have now,
Yeah.
the system
Uh-huh.
that is supposed to be taking care of patients, we
Right.
rarely get to spiritual principles unless someone's dying. Well, guess what? That's gonna
Yeah, we
change.
save it to the end. And then it's just a little bit. It's maybe a conversation about, "Hey,
Yeah,
where are you going? Where do
it
you think you're going?"
well, you know what? It's usually the last rites is when they start talking about it. Okay, it's time for you to go. Let's do your last rites.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, we need to
"Hey,
start
before you
way
leave, let's
before
talk
that.
about it." Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
let's talk about
Yeah, I
what's
know.
going
So
on. So
why not start the conversation now?
yeah, this conversation
Yeah.
now, spiritual principles, you get into the space where it
Mhm.
can filter down into the mental, emotional
Right.
state. And then that filters down into your physical body because you are actually thinking
Mhm.
different. You're
Mhm.
thinking cannabinoids help me to eliminate the box that says I must
Yeah.
think outside the box,
Right.
right? And opened up new
Right.
doorways to different aspects of how I could
Yep.
emerge
Yep.
back into the world,
Yeah.
you know.
And
Um,
here you are,
and
bright
here
and
I am, and
shiny,
here we
ready
are,
to
bright,
go.
shiny, happy people.
Yeah.
Holding
Mhm.
hands. Good stuff. I
Yeah.
know. So
Mhm.
here we go. So we go from AFA to
Yeah.
daily love.
Yeah.
to wellness, wise wisdom, hugs,
Wellness
and
wise.
nugs.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wacky Wild Wisdom Wednesday.
and so when we talk about love, what do we connect that with? We kind of connect that with our heart,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And so
That's
today's
always it.
topic, yeah. So today's topic is what? Heart health and cannabis. And
Cardiac health, baby. Yeah.
Here's a question. Is it
Yeah.
okay to use cannabis if you have a cardiac condition or heart disease?
Depends on how you're going to use it.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Let's talk about what is heart
Absolutely.
disease? What
Hmm.
is cardiovascular disease, Mark?
Well, we're talking about heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, right?
Yeah.
Yours
Mhm.
truly, angina, rheumatic heart disease, if you
Right.
have heart disease because of rheumatic fever. And
Right.
so, what are some of the risk factors for cardiac disease, Share?
Okay, so there are risk factors
Hmm.
or there are conditions or habits that make a person more likely to develop cardiac disease. It's all of those
Hmm.
things that we talk about that support and nourish the endocannabinoid system. So
Yep.
basically the risk factors include if you have high blood pressure and
Hmm.
or high cholesterol,
Hmm.
if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, if
Hmm.
you smoke, if you're overweight or obese,
Right. Right.
if you're physically inactive.
Second leading cause of preventable death.
Yeah, motion is
Yeah,
the lotion.
it
And
is.
having a family history of early heart disease.
Right.
Interesting. Having a history of preeclampsia during pregnancy,
Yeah.
and then an unhealthy diet. And then
Oh my
age,
God.
which is interesting. It didn't say much about men, but it said women 55 or older.
Yeah,
So,
listen, Cher, I gotta tell you, diet is huge,
yeah.
I have been trying to eat healthy for many, many years, and I go through times where I eat very, very healthy. The other day was not a healthy day, okay? Traveling, no time. I had a roast beef sub, and then I had 3 hot dogs for dinner. That's not a heart healthy diet, right?
Whoa, man.
Yeah, but hey, listen, here's the thing. You have days like that. I
Yeah,
immediately jumped back on the bandwagon, and yesterday I ate mostly vegetarian.
there
Very
you
little
go.
meat, mostly vegetarian, loaded up on the veggies and the fruit. And so it's a daily choice, right? So I
It's a
guess the
daily
message
choice.
is, listen, it, it happens and you just step back onto the into the heart healthy area.
Yeah. So the bottom line is when we look at all of these risk factors, it kind of makes you go
Mhm.
back to endocannabinoid system. We have
Boom.
an endocannabinoid system not because of the plant,
Yeah.
but because we make components in the body like the plant. And
Mhm.
when we don't
Mhm.
make enough,
Yeah.
messages don't get to the neurotransmitter signaling systems. They
Right.
don't get to the receptors. We have
Yep.
cannabinoid receptors on all of the cell surfaces of all of our 11 organ systems and immune
Mhm.
system. So
Mhm.
if you just think, how do we keep our endocannabinoid system nourished? Well,
Yeah.
it's by all of the choices. We're either supporting the endocannabinoid system or
Yeah.
we're not. It's as,
Yeah.
it's as simple as that.
Right. Right.
I'm not gonna lie. This is someone said this to me and I've had to think about it. I was like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Everything in moderation. And then I was thinking, I don't think I would take rat poison in moderation. So I
No.
started thinking of different things. So it's
There
really
are a
it's
lot
about
of things
choice.
that you don't use in moderation, you don't
No.
use at all. Now, hey,
Yeah,
Sherry, we got a question from Sherry.
sure.
Um, Wants to know what the long-term effects of cannabis use are on the lungs. And I'll say, there are in all of the research that I've seen that there hasn't been a long-term effect
Correlation.
shown for cannabis use. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, one of the things that you may develop is a cough, right? People cough when they
Yeah.
smoke cannabis, right?
Right.
It's a natural thing. That's an irritation of the lungs a little bit. It resolves as soon as you stop. Like if you just
Well,
stop, you'll resolve. It'll go
and
away. But yeah, go ahead.
there's other parts because I'm just going to pipe in there just a little bit
Yep.
too, because there are specific cannabinoids and terpenes that are
Yeah.
expectorants.
Yeah.
So I've taken care of lung cancer patients. I've
Mhm.
seen asthmatic patients that have
Yep.
smoked and their conditions have improved. So if you
Mhm.
think about when your airways are tight,
Mhm.
bronchitis,
Mhm.
um, asthma,
Yep. Narrowed
COPD.
airways. Yeah.
So that they're really tight. And so the narrower the airways, right, and
Mhm.
it can fill up with fluid, you
Yep.
you prevent really good oxygen exchange.
Yeah.
Oxygen exchange can be impaired. If you impair oxygen exchange, what happens? You don't get rich oxygenated blood into your
Mhm.
tissues
Mhm.
to perfuse them to keep them functioning optimally.
Right.
So here's the thing about coughing.
Mhm.
I used to be embarrassed of coughing. I was like, oh no, oh no. But here's the thing is some of these patients that are inhaling, they
Mhm.
have that expectorant effect where they're actually coughing. And guess what happens? They
Yeah.
clear out a big giant mucus plug.
Yeah.
They're able to, spew sputum in a
Mhm.
way that actually decreases anxiety, right? You
Yeah.
think about it. The
Yeah.
coughing decreases their anxiety. They get rid of things that don't belong in their lungs. It
Mhm.
improves oxygenation,
Right.
more oxygen to the brain, they become clearer. So it's
Right.
really kind of a cool when you start to really look at the dynamics of
Yeah.
anatomy and physiology and the effects.
And one in
So,
in one study that I had looked at in the past had to do with long-term effect of smoking cannabis versus tobacco and the
right.
presence of COPD. So
Hmm.
COPD, Sherry, I don't know about you, but I have to say a vast majority of the people that I worked with in the hospital environment,
Yeah.
especially, suffered from COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary
Pulmonary
disease,
disease.
directly as a result of tobacco smoking. It's the number
Yeah.
one cause. And, that's talking about emphysema and these other diseases of the lungs that eventually will kill you. And so
Exactly.
the study was the question, the hypothesis that they wanted to answer was, does cannabis cause COPD? And in this long-term study, they determined that they found no evidence that smoking cannabis caused COPD. So that's
There you
important to
go.
note.
Yeah.
Tobacco, yes. Cannabis,
Cannabis.
as far as
No.
we know, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing too with inhalation, there are
Yeah.
better ways to inhale than other ways.
Yeah.
Basically the better way is to take the dry flower and to put
Mhm.
it into a vaporizer to
Mhm.
steam it. The
Yeah.
steaming
Yeah.
the vapor off and inhaling it that way.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
not
Much
combusting.
better. Much better method of administration if you're gonna
Yeah.
use that, if you want that immediate relief.
Yeah.
And so,
Yep.
hey, we went down a little rabbit hole, but you know
We
what? These are
did, but
good
it's
rabbit holes.
wow.
Sherry, thanks for the question because that's really good to go down those. The
Well,
question needed to be
here
answered today.
well, and
That's the
this
way it
actually
is.
ties to cardiac health because when we
Yep.
talk about cardiac health,
Hmm.
respiratory, it all interacts. Cardiopulmonary status. So when we're in the
Yeah.
hospital, we're taking care of patients. We
Hmm.
look at a lot of different factors, cardiopulmonary, heart function,
Yeah.
oxygen perfusion, two
Yeah.
different things. So it kind of leads into that because when you inhale, right, when you inhale cannabis, what
Hmm.
happens to our body immediately? It
Right.
does affect the cardiac system,
Sure
right?
does. Absolutely.
Right? And so what can happen is it's a vasodilator. So
Hmm.
dilating blood vessels. So your
Yep.
blood pressure can drop just a little bit, and to compensate, your heart rate can go up.
Right.
So you see how our body is always trying to auto-regulate and to
Right.
compensate for different things that
And
happen.
that's what people in the healthcare system of today always point to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They
So
always
here's
point
like
to,
well here
"Hey,
here's
the
an
cannabis will increase your heart rate. It's bad for
right.
your heart." That's what they say,
No.
without having done any other research to look into
Exactly.
exactly what's going on.
And so the same thing with any condition that we're
Mhm.
working with, we always look at risk benefit ratio, right? We want to look at all of these different things that are going on in a patient. And when it comes to inhaling may not be the best choice overall, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be a choice for them to learn about and possibly experience if it's
Sure.
appropriate.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what do
Mhm.
they say about studies? Current research.
Oh, current research. Hey, listen, there are no clinical trials that have been conducted on humans that offer practical guidance to patients or providers, you know, with from patients that are suffering from cardiovascular illnesses. However, Sherry, preclinical studies show potential by which cannabinoids may modulate proper cardiac functioning.
Right, right.
Like
And
what?
so
Primarily
the
what?
CBD,
Mhm.
THC, and beta caryophyllene. So
Oh,
they've
beta
noted
carotene.
that these may be cardioprotective. And
Mhm.
we're not talking in big high doses. We're talking like when we're talking microdosing.
Yeah.
And CBD, THC, and beta caryophyllene are
Mhm.
therapeutic and be contributing factors to help manage the chronic stress that people have, decreasing anxiety, that can
Right.
help actually with regulating appetite to help decrease
Mhm.
inflammation, can
Mhm.
also help to decrease like inflammatory process. So we look at the contributing factors of health and wellness tools,
Right.
and the cannabinoid system enriching tools, and then the different cannabinoids that can help to modulate proper cardiac function.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here we go. Let's really talk about what that is, right?
Yeah.
CBD, THC, and beta caryophyllene may be cardioprotective with these specific cardiac events.
Right.
We just talked about this: hypoxia, low
Right.
oxygen, poor tissue perfusion.
Yep.
CBD, THC, and beta caryophyllene can help, right?
Right. Because it can vasodilate and allow for better blood flow, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Better
absolutely.
perfusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then arrhythmias, right? So there's
Mm.
irregular heartbeats. So if you develop an arrhythmia, these different cannabinoids may protect you from other things happening to your heart, because irregular
Mm-hmm.
heartbeats can lead to other conditions of the heart,
Right.
because it's not pumping effectively.
Right.
Same thing, chest pain, right? CBD,
Mm-hmm.
THC, and beta caryophyllene may be cardioprotective when people have angina or chest pain.
Right.
And then what's the big one? The last
Ah,
one.
myocardial infarction, heart attack, and myocardial ischemia, reperfusion injury. In other words, was there enough blood flow getting to the heart
Yeah, and so
or
when
the
you
heart
think about a
muscle
heart
itself?
yeah,
Mhm.
so when you think about a heart attack, a myocardial infarction, what that means is a part of your heart tissue has died because
Right.
it's not getting, so you have a blood vessel that's been blocked, and that arterial rich oxygenated blood is not getting to the heart to help it to pump effectively, right?
Right.
So if you think about what
Right.
happens is that that area of the heart dies. So
Mhm.
and then reperfusion injury, so someone may have a heart attack, however
Mhm.
these cannabinoids, like we said, may be cardioprotective, that allows reperfusion to happen, so really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the study in 2013?
So contrasted nearly 4,000 long-term heart attack survivors who used cannabis with those that didn't and found no significant statistical differences in their longevity. In other words, cannabis use did not contribute to them dying any sooner than they normally would have.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then what do we got? We got a few other things going on
Cardiac
here.
events,
So,
cannabis use studies. Yep. Yep.
yeah, the variability. So when you're looking at studies, there's been a variability in the cannabis type and use
Right.
pattern. So it makes the
Yeah.
studying challenging, right? You think about
Right. When you're
the
doing a
plant.
study, you want to be very rigid, right? Rigorous scientific study requires that you are very rigid in you're going to compare this population with this particular intervention, meaning cannabis smoking or
Right,
cannabis use, versus this population who doesn't. So it's
right,
it we're trying to compare like and like across the spectrum. So you're right.
right,
Cannabis use is tough because how long did somebody hold that inhalation?
right.
Right? Because that's going to have an effect. What was the
Exactly.
chemovar they were using? Like so it becomes
Exactly.
really difficult to get in to dive in and have this rigorous scientific study,
Yeah. So studies don't control, like Mark said, THC consumption or the presence of other cannabinoids,
which
because
is
we know
huge.
the entourage effect. The whole of the plant is greater than its
Mhm.
individual parts. So if
Mhm.
they're just picking apart different cannabinoids, they're really not getting a true picture. They're just kind of getting a little glimpse, you
Right.
know, a little glimpse
Right.
of what's going on.
Mhm.
So here we go. So if someone says that cannabis use increases risk for cardiovascular events, the next question should be, like we said, what type of cannabis and how are they
Right.
using it?
Right.
So, bottom line, research studies can be flawed at this moment in time because there is
Yeah.
some poor quality data,
Yeah.
inadequate assessment of cannabis exposure, and minimal
Mhm.
exposure in the populations that have been
Right.
studied. And
Right.
no control factor was put in place for anyone with pre existing heart conditions. So, you think about when these studies, they
Mhm.
didn't look past, in the past to see what was going on. They just went, what's
Right.
going on right here.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And at the end of the day, Sherry, we're trained when we look at research studies, we don't just necessarily assume that they're good research studies. We're
right.
trained to actually pick them apart and look at the methodologies that they use and all of these things, as you mentioned. Did they look and see if somebody had a pre existing
Yeah,
cardiac condition, right? So we
yeah,
pick these apart and we say, oh, this study was good, high
yeah,
quality, And this study was not. So the data coming out of this study, probably not
Right.
reliable.
So here's the bottom line when it comes to that. So when I'm looking at a research study, if
Yep.
the research study leaves me with more questions than answers, then I have to scratch my head, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
right, so it's like, wait a minute, what about this? Wait a minute, what about this? Wait a minute, right? So it's important, and that's why we use Canna Keys. Canna Keys
Mhm.
is great resource for us to
Mhm.
help us to pick apart
Yeah.
different stuff. So bottom line, when it comes to cannabinoid therapeutics,
Yeah.
is we're all about the micro dosing for the win, right?
Right.
Using little bits of cannabis multiple
Right.
times, often using cannabis multiple different ways.
Mhm.
And so again, we're going to talk about THC can increase heart rate. It's because it's a vasodilator,
Right.
opens up blood vessels.
Mhm.
Your blood pressure drops a little bit. Your body says, "Ooh, I need to beat a little bit faster." So your heart rate increases. So TH
Compensatory.
compensatory, exactly. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Right. So let's see, what else does it say? So
Yeah.
vasodilates. Okay, so it can increase the heart rate initially by 20 to 50 beats per minute. But
Yep.
like we said, your body
Mhm.
auto regulates, and bottom line is your heart rate will eventually go down.
Right.
Um, and then some reports suggest that the heart muscle must work 30% harder in the presence of high levels of THC. We're not
Right.
talking about microdosing, so microdosing for the win. And
Yep.
one last thing to explain about the reason why we like microdosing is because it mimics our endocannabinoid system, right? Our
Right.
endocannabinoid system is firing multiple times during the day
Mhm.
to keep
Mhm.
all of our 11 organ systems and our neurotransmitter signaling systems communicating, right? So we don't, big blasts are counterintuitive when you think about the on off switch. The
Right.
endocannabinoid system dials things up, dials things down, and
Yeah.
doing it multiple times throughout the day.
How's your body react to that, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, God, there's a
So
lot of
sure.
information here.
Sure. Oh, yeah, yeah, you ripped it up, but we're good, we're good, we're
We're
moving
good.
right
We
along.
did.
We're
Yeah.
moving right along. So,
In
really, so
summary,
what's the effect on arteries?
all right. So, the effect on arteries.
Yeah, which they carry
Um,
oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to
there
other
you go.
organ systems, right? So
Yep.
high doses of THC are not good for arteries. It
Yeah.
increases plaque buildup in the arteries. Who knows where that leads? Probably not in a good
Yeah.
direction. Low
Yep.
doses of THC, however, have been shown to reduce plaque buildup
Plaque.
and the risk for atherosclerosis. I always had a problem in nursing school with
Right.
that. So
Yep.
I just like
So,
to
here it
say
is.
it'll decrease hardening of the arteries.
Exactly. So high doses of THC are not good for the arteries. Lower
Yep.
doses of THC have been shown to reduce plaque and
Yep.
reduce risk. So here we
Mhm.
go. So when we talk about CB2 receptors, right? Those
Yep.
CB2 receptors are mostly expressed in
Mhm.
immune cells in our internal organs. So what happens when we activate CB2 receptors? Well,
Yeah.
when you activate CB2 receptors, it reduces inflammation,
Mhm.
decreases free radicals, it
Yeah.
acts as an antioxidant.
Right.
And basically free radicals and arteries can, when you have increased free radicals, right? Increase, you're going to have more inflammation, and it's going to increase the
Mhm.
plaque buildup in the arteries, like we said, which can increase risk for heart attack and stroke. So when we
Right.
activate the CB2 receptors, it reduces inflammation,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so through this anti-inflammatory effect, if a heart attack or stroke does occur, activating these CB2 receptors can reduce the extent of damage. So just think about if you do have a pre-existing heart condition and you start
Mhm.
to work with various cannabinoids in low doses, microdosing, right? Having these CB2 receptors activated, and if a cardiac event does happen,
Right.
there's a potential for reducing the extent of damage to the heart, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so what at the end of the day are we saying, Sherry? We're saying that CBD, the fair hair, the fair-haired child,
The
the
fair-haired child.
CBD is
Yeah,
going to be a much more um, welcomed addition to the cannabinoid spectrum.
exactly.
You should be, you want to use CBD as opposed to THC because CBD has all of the benefits, but it doesn't induce that increased heart rate that THC does.
Right. And then the thing is too, is if people do need THC and they do have cardiac
Hmm.
conditions, we go really, really slow, right?
Really
Really, really
low,
slow,
really slow.
low
Right.
and slow,
Hmm.
right? So the thing that's important about CBD, which is really different from THC, is this. CBD works on 63 targets in the body. All
Hmm.
11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems, right,
Hmm.
directly impacts the dopamine, the serotonin, and the opioid signaling systems.
Right.
And CBD, when we're utilizing it, does not produce the radical changes in the hemodynamics, such as heart rate, blood pressure. But what it
Right.
does is it presents with supportive mechanisms, like we talked
Hmm.
about, cardioprotective, stress reduction, via the modulation of those serotonin receptors.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how CBD can work on serotonin, which actually affects cardiac function, right?
Well, yeah, if you think that CB2 receptors are primarily in the gut, the
Yeah,
majority of serotonin that's produced
serotonin.
in your body is in the gut. I kind of
Yeah,
you can see that there's a potential for connection
correlation.
there.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing
Yeah.
that's important too, so when we talk about if patients do need a little bit more THC in their
Hmm.
diet,
Yep.
CBD can modulate THC's ability to fully activate those CB1 receptors
Right.
and can protect, right? Could
Dials
protect
it
from that.
back.
Yeah, dials it back, dials up,
Hmm.
dials back.
Hmm.
So it can help prevent harm if the blood pressure starts to decrease and the heart rate starts to elevate.
There
So
you
that
go.
is why we work with ratios when working with patients in whole plant medicine. We
Hmm.
look at
Hmm.
chemotypes. More THC is chemotype 1, equal amounts of THC and CBD is chemotype 2, and higher amounts of CBD than THC is chemotype 3. Right?
Yeah. Hell
The thing
yeah.
Yeah. So what about, oh my
Insane.
God, what about this one?
Yeah.
Um, what was there's a really good one in here that I just missed. When we talked about the I know, this just went away. Oh yeah, here it is, THCV, right?
Yep.
That's another cannabinoid that we didn't talk about.
Right. Minor cannabinoid.
Right? And the thing that's interesting about THCV, very similar to THC, is it can have biphasic properties,
Right.
meaning that you utilize it in a lower dose, it's
Hmm.
going to have one effect, and then in a higher dose,
Right.
it's going to have a different effect. So
Exactly.
THCV is a cannabinoid that has pro-cardiovascular effects in low doses. Boom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Sherry.
All right. So summary. We're at the summary. We're at the end. We're wrapping up all of the love that we have in our heart for you all.
Yeah.
We're
So,
just
in
gonna we're
summary,
gonna review the bottom line. This is the bottom line.
low doses of THC appear to most strongly activate pro cardiovascular health effects. Full spectrum CBD with trace amounts of THC is what we're talking here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Low doses of THC have been shown to reduce plaque buildup and risk for atherosclerosis. Low
Right.
doses of THC are usually patient specific. And, generally, we don't give a number. We
Right.
work with people, it start low, go slow, and titrate.
Right.
So low doses of THC
Different
reduce
for
plaque
everybody.
buildup. Yep.
Hmm. At higher THC doses, the effect on CB1 receptors overrides THC's effect on the CB2 receptors and has a net negative impact on cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. So lower doses of THC again. And
Yeah.
finally, we on the
Hmm.
bottom line, CBD has beneficial effects on cardiovascular risk factors, all of the different things that we talked about, you know,
Right.
improving your exercise and your diet and eating well. CBD
Yeah.
paired with other health and wellness activities really has an effect on the cardiovascular risk factors. And, in animal
Yeah.
models they studied,
Hmm.
it improves recovery of heart attacks and stroke.
Yeah.
So that's why I love to use CBD full spectrum. I like to use it as a nutrient or a
Yeah.
supplement, you
Right.
know.
Right. Hey, we have a question from Tiffany, Cher.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to assume that it's autocorrect in play here because she wants to know that she's asking, she sees that there are companies now selling isolated terpenes. Now, to me, that's a lonely turtle. I don't know. Are
It's a
companies selling a
oh,
terrapin as a turtle?
terpenes.
Yeah, I know it's terpenes. It's autocorrect,
Oh,
but it says isolated terpenes. So I'm thinking lonely turtles. People are
yeah.
selling lonely
Oh my
turtles.
God, you're
I think
so
that's a good
funny.
thing. The turtles need a little love. They sell them. It's
I'm
good.
like, I'm like, is that a
Okay.
new concept? Did
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
come up
yeah.
with a new
Isolated
word?
terpenes. Now, here's the thing. She did mean terpenes, right? It's
Yeah,
autocorrect. Don't you just love autocorrect? Now,
I
here's the
do.
thing. Here's my opinion on the company selling just straight terpenes. It goes back to the entourage effect. It's about all of the different components,
Constituents.
right, the constituents in the cannabis plant. To sell an isolated terpene, I
I
just
don't
don't
think it's
think
a
it's
good
the way to
idea.
go because
Me
it's in
neither.
higher concentration. It's not paired with any of the other things that are
Yep.
important. If we get them in
Well,
our diet, right, because
that's it. That's
terpenes
the
are in
better
all of our
way.
stuff, it's a better way, right? So
Yeah.
using spices, using all of these things.
Yeah. I agree with
Yeah,
you, Nurse Mark. And so when we do Terpene Tuesday, the majority of the time, some of the times we'll pull out one specific terpene. And then when
yeah,
we actually review it and go through all of the information,
yeah.
it talks about terpenes in specific different studies that have been mixed with other things.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
some of the isolated terpenes that they've started to research, they've said that in high doses, it's toxic. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
So,
right.
especially to
So
skin,
is there a
they're
health
used.
benefit?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd opt to just utilize these terpenes in a full spectrum CBD
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
There you
they
go.
they 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 do show potential health benefits, but the bottom line is
Yeah.
when it comes to safety, it's about
Yep.
putting it all together. The whole of the plant is greater
Yeah.
than its
Yeah.
individual parts. There we
That's
go.
right.
All right.
All
Cool,
right. So
cool,
Sherry,
cool.
what we got going on? What we got going
So
on?
so tonight we have on Monty Schiffler from Super
Money.
Botanicals.
Yep.
I've been sampling her products for the past week and they're really, really good. And it's just another type of a product that
Mhm.
people should be aware of because honey has health benefits,
Mhm.
Ayurvedic herbs, adaptogens, and
Mhm.
various ratios of cannabinoids. So she's created a
Mhm.
product line that is like symptom targeted. And
Yep.
it's like I said, it's different levels of cannabinoids, terpenes, and she's actually done it herself. So she's a herbalist, master
Mhm.
herbalist.
Mhm.
She's studied under Tammy Sweet, who's an herbalist here in New England, who does
Yep.
amazing work. And her grandmother and great grandmother were herbalists over in Germany. So she has a great, compelling story as to why
Yeah.
she created these honeys and how it's improved the
Exciting.
health of herself and her family and
Mhm.
why she
Mhm.
has developed the line of products. So that's what we like to talk about on the show is, people
Yeah.
get into the cannabis space and it's like there's always a story behind it. There's always something
Right.
that's either happened personally or with a friend or family or a loved one.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a story that goes along with it because you don't
Yeah.
just decide to hop in one day. So, anyways, this is a really, really good product because it's another way of consumption. Another way of getting it into our bodies is,
Right.
eating the raw honey, putting it in tea, putting it in salad dressings or however, you want to
Yeah.
utilize, putting it on your coffee, your tea, your oatmeal.
Yeah.
And so it does, and it has health benefits. And I noticed, I've
Mhm.
noticed a really with sleep
So
and the
she'll be
irritable
on
bowel.
tonight.
She'll be on
Exciting.
tonight. Good stuff. Yeah.
Exciting. And then, of course, we'll
Yep.
be here for the rest of the week. Now, here's the important note. I hope to God you're all in the community now,
Oh, yeah.
the Green
Geez.
Nurse Holistic Caring community. You
Yeah.
got to jump on. That's where we're having the full on conversations when we can
Yep.
talk about whatever we need to talk about and be open and not
Open.
restricted by
Yeah.
censorship.
So yeah, just a quick story on that. I was
Yep.
doing a duet, my third TikTok account because the other ones got taken down. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just be really, really, really boring. No blowing smoke, no paraphernalia, no like weed pictures, none of that. I'm just going to have conversation. So I was there, doing my little education thing.
Hmm.
I had this necklace on.
Yeah.
There was no indication. Like I don't even think I said the word cannabis. I think I just said plants.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was this necklace that
Yeah.
completely had that video
That's
taken
why.
down.
That's why we have a community.
That's why we have a community.
That's
And so in the
exactly why.
community, so let's just talk about the benefits of joining the community.
Yep.
Number one, uncensored. Number
Yep.
two, it's private off of social media, so it'll never be taken down. Number three, all of our podcasts are there. It's in one place for you to,
Yeah.
to utilize. Free introductory to cannabis course right in there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Free patient portal, free patient support group, and a free book club monthly. And you don't even need to own the book. This is really cool. And we're starting off with this book.
An amazing book.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
stuff.
All right.
Yeah, so
That's
this has
it,
been a
Cher.
this has been a great show. Nurse Mark, thank you for all you
Kick
do.
it off, guys. This is September
Yeah,
1st, 2021. The only one you're going to get. Make today count. This is a
make it
great
count.
day here.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And remember, Mark, what it's all about.
Oh, it's about living your best life and helping
And
others. Remember, sharing, helping others to do the same.
yeah, we love you. Bye, everyone.
Love you guys.